Good evening, folks. Welcome to Citizens Alliance for Better Candidates. Joe Oddo, your host here. I am joined by Pat LaMarche, and I must say I am honored to have Pat with me because me and Pat, we go back some 20 years. I met her when she was on the campaign trail. This woman has run for office before. Now I'm on this program because I'm running for Congress this year. And it's not my first time, and Pat's done it numerous times too. But since she did that, she has written like 11 books. Let's go back to that day that I met you, Pat. It was in 2004, across the street from Vice President Cheney's house, and they had some kind of construction thing going on, didn't they?
Yeah, they were putting a 8-story bunker under the Naval Observatory on Massachusetts Avenue there where the vice president lives. Oh my God, remember the size of the beams? Just the size of tractor trailer trucks, these beams that were going in there. And someone came up to me when we were standing there on the street corner and said, what's he thinking he needs an 8-story bunker for? And I said, he's the only guy who gets to survive.
Right.
They weren't building me an 8-story bunker. They weren't building you an 8-story bunker. Something's coming.
They must have already had one for the president, right?
Right. So it's just, it was just more, and the neighbors weren't happy. I was really happy because right across the street is the Vatican, which of course is Vatican property, right? Once you're in the city, it's their country. And I was doing my left out tour, so I was sleeping out on the street. And some guys came out from the Catholic Church and said, you could sleep on our grass. Which was
You slept good that night.
I did. They had a nice lawn.
So we should tell people why you were there. Pat was on the ballot for vice president with the Green Party ticket of David Cobb at the time, 2004. And Pat, when you're saying about sleeping out like that, you visited homeless shelters all around the country. Wow, what an experience.
Yeah, when I ran for vice president, I had a little inkling I might not win. So I didn't want to waste a year of my life, obviously, running for it. And for people who understand laws like ballot access laws, they understand that third parties will cease to exist in most of the states in the country if they don't run top of the ticket candidates. And it's a nice way for the established parties to spin the wheels on smaller parties so that they can't invest money in their lower tickets where they could actually win, tickets like the one you're running for, even water board, school board, things that it would be great to have different voices on, all the way up to the top. So in order for most political parties to exist, they have to run a vice presidential and a presidential candidate. So, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy out of people's lives. And I thought, well, if I'm going to run for this huge office, I want to talk about the people I care about, mommies, veterans, children, babies, college kids, and all of those people I care about, you can find them in a homeless shelter. So I decided I'd just go from shelter to shelter throughout the year and talk to people and meet people that are, on the absolute edge of the wealthiest nation on earth. And maybe, if I got a little bit of press and we could talk about homelessness, then it would be a victory for my campaign.
Yeah, this is the book that she put out at the time, and she has already updated it, one of the 11 that she's updated. What's interesting about all of that, Pat, and I was probably running for Congress back then too. We had that outside of the big two-party mentality, and some of that still exists, but like you say, the big parties are really trying to squash that, and they seem like they've done a pretty good job recently here when they got what may have been our last great white hope of independent there, Robert Kennedy. He rolled over and joined the big two again. So, I mean, what's your take on what do you have an opinion on all that mess?
Well, I think if you roll over, you're definitely not the definition of the great white hope.
Right, exactly.
You might have been giving people hope, but it was false hope.
Right.
So I think it's hard to say something like that, right? Because you sound like you're lobbing rocks from the outside in, and I'm a registered Green, I'm still a registered Green. I was the Green Party's vice presidential candidate. I established the Green Party in the state of Maine. There was a ballot threshold that required a candidate get more than 5% of the vote. We had lost ballot status. We'd gotten it once. We lost it. I got it back. The first woman ever in the history of the state to establish a political party. And then you put that kind of blood, sweat, and tears in it, and you think some chucklehead is going to call you up and say, why don't you come work on my campaign, even though I don't stand for anything you believe in, which Robert Kennedy Jr. had said, that man stands for nothing I believe in. And you're just going to roll over and go work for him and shovel his coal. To me, that's just, that was the test that Robert Kennedy failed, right? So
one of the things,
I wish nobody any harm, but I don't think he was the great anything hope.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that this podcast is going to focus in on is citizens better candidates, basically, a citizens alliance, right? And we need to keep putting people on the ballot, keep running people, because one thing you did say, you didn't think you could win, but actually, Pat, you won by running. Now, you may not have got elected, and we are all still waiting to get elected, right? But just being in the fight is a big win. And
but Joe, I lost by 53 million votes to a man who shot his friend in the face. It hurts a girl's feelings.
Right on.
I tell you right now.
Yeah. Well, another one of Pat's. Oh, is Victoria on the call? Did I see Victoria joined us? I'm not sure you can get in at this point. We needed the producer said we had to get you in early, so I'm not sure if you
I'm
can
here.
join us.
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
you're here. All right, Victoria. Thank you for joining us. I'll come back around and ask you a question here late in a few minutes. Okay. I'm gonna ask Pat one more thing. This book here, Pat, was really intriguing because how long ago you wrote this one? 10 years or so?
2013.
And so there's still no middle class, right? It's disappearing in front of our eyes. And one thing you covered in there was the episode about 1920s when the miners in West Virginia wanted to strike, and they waited. They were patriots. They waited till after the World War before they launched this strike. But they were still being called Bolsheviks and still being abused. Tell me what kind of parallels you see from then 100 years later.
Yeah, that was the greatest use of the U.S. Armed Forces against the people of the United States, the Battle of Blair Mountain. And in Daddy, What's the Middle Class? I went 9,800 miles around the country and interviewed the Memphis transportation workers, right? The sanitation workers, pardon me. Those are the people that Martin Luther King Jr. was down, stumping for when someone shot him on the terrace of the Lorraine Motel. There's been a long, slow, hard slog to build a middle class and keeping it even tougher. And then, if you go back down to West Virginia now, you can see that the Battle of Blair Mountain was lost because it's all mountaintop removal now. It's all this. In fact, they moved the tombstones off the mountains so they can blow up the cemeteries. And if you want, you can go get your Uncle Fred's tombstone, but Uncle Fred's rib cage just got blown halfway to Virginia, right? So it's just absolutely horrible what they're doing to the ecology of our planet. But then people blame environmentalists for the loss of jobs, and really it's this ability to blow them out into smithereens instead of just actually hiring people to do the work. And then also finding a better use for coal and other things than burning it. It's just like the stupidest thing of all is just to find a resource and set it on fire. So
I think one of your best lessons in there was that if they would have just sought a peaceful resolution to the strike rather than throw the armed forces against the grievances. I mean, if they had just listened, right? And that's sort of reflective of what's going on today. Everybody just wants to throw daggers and arrows and nobody wants to listen or talk to each other.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that the whole outside voice has been stifled, or else we'd have a third party right now, right? Because the Republican Party is completely disintegrated. And every one of us knows 250 lovable, wonderful Republicans. We've known them all our lives. people who were Eisenhower Republicans who are generous to a fault and care about each other. And their party has been torn to shreds. And a different party can't rise up in this atmosphere when one absolutely should, because the system is meant to destroy any kind of other voice. And so you end up with one very heavy part. I mean, it's like the end of the Cold War almost. You know, the Republicans and Democrats were the Cold War, and now if you want a two-party system, why can't it be the Democrats and the Greens? Why in God's name clinging so desperately to the new fascists? You know, it's just, I don't understand.
Well, and I think the positive, though, that may have came out of the RFK run was the fact that even though he was an establishment hack, you know, he didn't really know what he was doing. He took a shot at getting on the ballot and showed people how hard it was going to be and what kind of machine they were going to throw at him to get him knocked off the ballot in many states. So that whole thing came to light a little bit more, I think, and that's going to come back and bite that party too, I think.
Well, I think Nader always was a voice for that too. What are the state Commonwealth of Pennsylvania fined Nader $3 million or something at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
For having the audacity to run. But
They
I think,
made him pay the Democrats' lawyer fees too.
yeah, there's a lot to running that people don't understand, which is why I'm not in politics anymore.
Right.
I know you have another guest you want to interview, but you know.
Well, I'm gonna bring Victoria in now if she unmutes. Let me ask you this, Victoria. You were on independent campaign way back in Ross Perot's time. Can you bring yourself back on screen? Are you there? Unmute. Victoria. Maybe not.
Lost her.
So she was worked on the Ross Perot campaign. So we'll get back to her in a moment.
I interviewed Ross Perot back in my media days. Well, I guess
cool.
I'm in my media days again. Yeah,
Right.
He was running. Geez, what was that? 92. 92. Yeah. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I used to teach at the New England School of Communications, and I brought my class to his speech, and he sat down. He talked to my whole class, my whole public speaking class. It was great.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Victoria, how you doing?
I apologize.
Can you bring yourself on screen? So we're live on the network right now.
I apologize, but I was on an Alliance Party board call until, I just hurried,
okay.
like 8:00, and I hurried up and I'm eating right now, so I don't want to.
Well, thanks for joining us. I was just showing Pat. Pat had interviewed this guy named Ross Perot, and you had worked on his campaign way back in the day. One of the things I read in his thing was the fact that the melting pot of our country is the strength, not the weakness of our country. Our culture is dynamic because it's varied. You were up close and personal to that campaign. Tell me, do you agree that the people have lost that and they want to go into the culture wars these days? Tell me what your thinking is on that.
Ross Perot was actually very plain spoken. I don't know if you remember the videos. I was so young. I was in my early 20s, but I decided to support independence after I was asked to run for Congress on the GOP ticket, having come out of the Young Republicans in California, moving to Minnesota, being the only woman that showed up at one of the caucuses. I was asked to be a delegate, walked our governor, Arnie Carlson at the time, down the aisle. They sort of swept me up into the GOP party politics of the state. But I ended up not wanting to be part of that, primarily because they were against women's health care and our ability to choose what we want to do with our own bodies. And so I started exploring alternatives, and I realized that really I'm a fiscal conservative and a social liberal. And so there wasn't really a good party fit. And then lo and behold, Ross Perot comes out of the woodwork, and I loved his charts and everything that he stood for. And so I was fortunate to become the assistant state director in Minnesota. And I was also eventually appointed his spokesperson for NAFTA nationally. And I learned that Ross Perot really does care about the middle class, and he cares about the average person. One thing that really struck me was when he came to Minnesota to participate in an event, and back then, the Reform Party, which became the Alliance Party in Minnesota, had tens of thousands of members, enough to fill a huge auditorium. And Ross Perot insisted that the person that picked him up at the airport was someone, middle-aged, driving a normal, 10-year-old American car. He just wanted
limo.
No, he just wanted water. He had very simple needs. And his advance team, they came in, for security reasons, to prep us for that. He didn't want any fanfare. He didn't care about that. He wanted to just, be a normal person and literally be in a car alone with just a regular guy or girl. And just all of that whole experience really led me to support him with more of my heart and not just my mind. And anyway, I wish he would have won, but we gave it our best effort, and he got more than 5% of the vote. So we were able to eventually elect Jesse Ventura for governor.
Yeah, and a lot of good came out of that, because that's when the incumbents in power at the time realized, wow, we really ought to balance this budget. And it's the last time the budget has been balanced because of Ross Perot's input on that race. So
I misspoke. It was Dean Barkley, who is running for U.S. Senate, that we got more than 5% of the vote for, and he's the one that actually he actually served as Jesse Ventura's chief of staff, or was it the head of his transition team? I'm not really sure. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. But anyway, between Ross Perot and Dean Barkley, we were able to build a sizable influence in Minnesota for independents in general. We merged a couple parties within the state that were focused on independent politics. And eventually that party joined with the Alliance Party on a national level. So, and that's the party I'm involved with now. So I'm kind of coming home, so to speak.
Oh, that's great. So it sounds like both of you are in agreement that we need a third party to keep on challenging the uniparty, right? Yes.
And I was upset at RFK, his decision. I'm involved in the INC. I think you know about that, Joe.
Yeah,
you can't go.
We talked about that a little earlier. So, but thank you, both of you guys, for being here. And actually, I think maybe even Kelly might be trying to join us. And I really am honored to have you folks, especially the inspiring women who really make a difference in the political world. Now that we have a woman at the top of the ticket on one of the major parties, that's got to feel good for you guys in a way, even though it is that party. Tell me your thoughts on that real quick, Pat.
Well, I mean, I remember when she became vice president. I have grandchildren now, and my granddaughter was very excited. The other thing that's wonderful about Kamala Harris isn't just that she's a woman, it's that she's a Black woman and an Asian woman, even though Donald Trump doesn't understand the concept of that. And my granddaughter is also Asian. My daughter-in-law is Asian. And when she became vice president, my granddaughter bought me a T-shirt with Kamala Harris as the vice president on it, because to my granddaughter, who at the time was 5, this was something her grandmother had been working for. So I don't discount the massive change, quantum change that's gone on to, if you look at a picture of all the vice presidents in the history of time, there are no women, and there's certainly Black people or people of color. So I do think that's all really, really important. And what I would love to see is a system where Now, obviously, I just want to throw out there that there is a Green Party candidate running for president, and there are plenty
Yeah,
of
Jill Stein.
plenty of
really
other third-party candidates running for president right now.
Right.
And that's how we're talking about issues that the other big parties don't want to talk about, right? Because even though these guys can't traditionally win or get elected, they can talk about really important issues like Palestine. And
Right.
and so the voice needs to be, they silence someone's voice. They silence, if you're a dissenting voice and they silence a dissent candidate, then they've silenced the dissenters.
Right.
And, you know, they really felt like they had to, right? Because Perot, Stockdale, all of them, when they got to the national stage, people said, yeah, I want to shut my hearing aid off too, like Stockdale did, right? So it's just, I think it's really important for us all to keep talking. And I'm really glad that you're running, Joe. And I'm glad, I mean, I'm learning about your party as this show goes on, which is good for me. But I work really low on the ground now. I work with homeless people because I've learned something about politics, and that's that while we do need to change the way people think about women and people of color and everything else, when they have absolutely nothing to offer and they're working 2 jobs, but they can't afford a place to live, nobody cares about them. and you know, this is the wealthiest country on earth, and there are 1.6 million homeless school kids. So somebody figure out the math on why that makes any sense. So that's
Right.
all I spend my time on now. So I'm not much. I appreciate you dusting off the mothballs to get me out here, but
Right on. Well, we only have a few minutes left. This is a 30-minute program. It runs quick. I'm going to bring Kelly in real quick. Kelly, tell me, you were working recently and maybe still are on freeing Assange, and that had to be exhilarating to actually see him get freed.
It really was after so many years. And I apologize for being late, but I've been working and we've got a show tomorrow, and we've actually got another Alliance Party candidate, Independence Alliance. I guess that's the same.
Yeah, from
right?
Minnesota.
Yes, that's Joyce Lacey for U.S. Senate.
Oh, well,
She'll be
Victoria knows it probably.
Oh, okay. So she'll be on tomorrow.
That's great.
Yeah, so, but we've been dealing with so much censorship that I've decided to go to Rumble, even though I think there's a lot of, you know, everybody has sort of a idea of what different platforms really are about. And I think it was kind of more right-leaning. And so maybe I wanted to be more neutral, but everything's being censored. So we're going wherever we can. So anyway, I'm sorry I was late. I was trying to get that all set up to send out the invite for tomorrow. So thank you for inviting me. I don't know. I'm not someone who really wants to vote based on sex. So I don't know if I'm really the best one to have on this, but I do think it's good.
This is a Citizens Alliance for Better Candidates in general. So it doesn't, you know, today we were focusing on women, and some of the folks who inspired all of us may have been this woman here, Shirley Chisholm. And I'm going to ask all you guys real quick on what, I mean, I think at one point, Pat, you had written that you just stumbled upon Rosa Parks being a community activist. You didn't really know that at first, and I think Shirley realized was the same kind of thing. She realized that America is not measured by its achievements, but by its potential. So give me a little bit about maybe who inspired you and what you think about someone like Shirley. We have 5 minutes left. Go ahead, Pat.
Oh, me first. First of all, she was my hero when I was a little kid. Right. So I'm in that generation. The other thing that's really exciting for me is in the Girl Scout handbook, she and I are on the same page.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's the Girl Scout handbook has a politics badge. And it talks about women in politics. And so they put us together on the same page, which I was honored to be in it at all. And then when I saw my page mate, it was pretty exciting. I mean, when I was a little kid, my hero was Harriet Tubman, right? I couldn't read enough Harriet Tubman stories. I also don't want to vote for a woman who'll sell me down the river versus a man who will stand up for my rights. But I do think it's important to have women's voices out there, and as often as possible, if they're not a puppet, actually puppeting a man's voice, then I want women elected. But I just loved Harriet Tubman because to me, she was a person who sacrificed herself. And once she got to freedom, she went back into bondage to get more people into freedom. And it was constantly risking her own safety. And she was the ultimate social warrior. And then, I mean, growing up, I've just liked people who told the truth. Most important one in my life was my mom. She was a hardworking, loved politics, marched in the civil rights era we didn't tell my dad any of it. We hid stuff in the window box so that she wouldn't know.
Great story. All right, Victoria, give me somebody a hero of yours.
The more I listen to Kamala, the more I think that she might become my modern day female hero. We shall see. I still have a lot to learn about her, but I loved her speech. I loved Michelle Obama's speech. I loved Oprah Winfrey's speech. I think that today, at least in the DNC, and I'm a staunch independent, but at least in the DNC, I think we have a really deep bench of strong women politicians.
Good point. Okay. How about you, Kelly? You're muted, Kelly. So.
Gosh, I think, you know what, I'll take this opportunity if it's okay. We did a live stream for an independent candidate, Kat, in Colorado. It was about the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, and we had Marianne Williamson and Jill Stein on, and
good.
A really important issue. And as I said before, I'm not someone who really has paid a lot of attention to just women's, rights and in politics. It's just not been my focus, but it was really great. I learned a lot on those two live streams. I learned that Biden-Harris administration has refused to publish the ERA and in fact has fought against it in court, just like Trump did. So that's a bomb right there. I did not know that, and I learned that. So we met the attorney, Wendy Murphy, who has been battling this. But basically, it would put an end to, the Roe v. Wade issue because it would be a states' rights issue. So I really encourage everyone to look that up. You can go to Equal Means Equal and find out more.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And it was funny because I was aware of it living in Virginia for 40 years. They were one of the last states to pass it. And once it got passed, that was the number we needed to get it passed nationwide. But yet, like you say, they won't move it anywhere, right? I mean, that's a shame. So we are in the last minute now. And again, I want to thank my guests for appearing tonight. That you guys are awesome to bring this all together. Our launch of the Citizens Alliance for Better Candidates. And basically, we're going to flip the script on the standard media narrative. That's what our purpose is. Those big parties, in our mind, spoil elections for us. So when RFK kind of said, I don't want to be a spoiler, see, he's not an independent. He would otherwise know that it's them spoiling it for us. So let them go. And I kind of think the same thing with no labels. If they couldn't find somebody, it's because they only wanted establishment hack. So that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks again, ladies. I really appreciate you joining me tonight. And thanks to those who are watching. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Peace. I think we're out now.
Kelly, can you send me I'm a journalist. I write for the Bucks County Beacon, which is a Philadelphia area paper. So
Yes.
Thank you for what you did for Julian Assange. And if you could send me any info, Joe has my email address, or you could
Okay.
I would just love to, first of all, I love Julian Assange when he was just demolishing the baloney around the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so grateful. I was live on the air. I worked for Stephen King, who owns a fleet of radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
It's his morning show, and we were airing tapes that he was leaking on
Oh, wow.
show. So I honor any and all work you did on that. I'm just grateful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I worked on Assange Countdown to Freedom with Randy Credico for 4 years. And then in January, we launched this Candidates for Assange. So Matt Ho, he's a veteran. He and I just decided we had to do something else because he was still, he wasn't freed until June. But then it just kept going because there's so many issues that are still, well, we need a pardon for Assange. But there are so many other cases, and journalism is really on the line. And so anyway, that's my two areas of interest is journalism and election stuff, like right now the ballot access obstacles that everyone's dealing with. So, but yeah, about the ERA, really, I had no idea about that. I was so floored when I learned that.
You know,
we're gonna get cut off now, guys. It's
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry.
We'll connect you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so sorry I was so late, Joe. I'm
Good night.
sorry.
Well, thanks for making it.
Well, you can come tomorrow if you like.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll send you the link.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Peace.
Thank you.